Welcome. My name is Bob Miles. Joining us today is Kevin Clayton, President and CEO of Clayton Homes, a recent acquisition of Warren Buffett's holding company and conglomerate, Berkshire Hathaway. Kevin is uniquely qualified to share his thoughts and observations on growing up with a dynamic entrepreneurial father, succeeding him in a business, managing a publicly owned company in an industry that has had its share of failures, and selling to Warren the business and now continuing to expand, develop, and produce industry-leading sales and profits. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Bob. It's nice to be here.
I'm wondering if you can describe just what Clayton Homes is.
We are a very large affordable housing producer. So we currently have 36 manufacturing plants, and each of those terrific general managers runs their operation. They're scattered across the whole U.S. from coast to coast. And between all those plants, we'll build almost 200 houses each and every day. We have 450 retail stores that we own. And in addition to that, we have about 1,200 wonderful independent retailers that buy product as well from us. And then the finance company, around 450,000 customers paying monthly. And we try to earn their mortgage business on each sale that we make out there. Then we write insurance as well. Being a Warren Buffett company, he particularly liked the insurance and, of course, the financing.
So it's 5 businesses in one.
It is.
And how did you happen to get into the business?
Well, my father, fortunately for me, my father was raised on a cotton farm in West Tennessee, and they picked cotton every day. And his father had a dream for my dad, and that was to carve out, 5 or 10 acres, and Dad would have his own land there and continue to be a sharecropper. And my dad had some different plans, and fortunately for us, he moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, and started selling multiple jobs, as you can imagine. I mean, literally had 3 jobs at all times. Got into the radio and broadcasting business. Started running some line ads while he was in the fraternity selling used cars. And shortly thereafter, he had a used car lot. And not too much longer after that, took a trade-in of a manufactured home for a used car, made more on the trade-in of the mobile home. And the story starts going from there. And it wasn't long. We were driving to Elkhart, Indiana, buying new manufactured housing, and started that segment of the business.
But how did you get into the business?
Well, that was the question, right? I really grew up working around my dad night and day. All of my brothers and sisters too, we all contributed from setting up, installing manufactured homes. And it was a lot of fun growing up around that and watching the company grow. And my mom and all of us worked to try to make it happen.
Well, you sold the business to Warren Buffett, and it started after Warren was visited by students from the University of Tennessee. They gave him a book.
Correct. He fortunately read the book and placed a call in to us. He called my father. My dad was out snow skiing. My dad retired in 1999, and so this was late '02 or 2003. And my dad passed the call along to me, and what an honor it was to, of course, call Warren. And we talked for several minutes, and before I knew it, he became very interested in our company. Sent a small package to him. Of course, I've heard that story from other people. You send a small package to Warren, and he'll let you know very quickly what interest he has.
So possibly for the first time in history, somebody has been phoned by Warren Buffett, and he didn't call him back. Your dad?
That's right.
Instead gave the phone call to you because
me.
You were managing the business.
Correct.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Even the Bank of England, calls Warren, and but your dad knew that you were running the business and let you handle the call.
Yeah.
So, selling the business to Warren, you sent him a package of 3 years financials.
No, it was very, being a publicly traded company, we had a current road show, which is 15, 20 slides, basically that, and then any public information. Very small package. As you've heard, Warren literally keeps up with most every publicly traded company out there. So, and all the connections and contacts he has, it didn't take him long to size our company up.
Why sell the business?
At that time in our industry, financing, many of our competitors had really tapped into this Wall Street asset-backed securitization process, and some of those people's loan performances were terrible, and the industry was plagued with foreclosures. And so we looked out, talked to the board, and ultimately the board came to a consensus that $12.50 a share was the best thing for our current shareholders.
Which should be about $1.7 billion?
That's correct.
Okay.
And so we went through the process of getting a fairness opinion and looking at what other alternatives were out there, and ultimately the board believed, and it was in the shareholders' best interest, and certainly history now since then has shown that that was a very wise decision, because financing has literally dried up and changed forever for this industry.
Well, so did it take you any time at all to realize that it would be a good thing to sell the business? Was there any hesitation on your part?
Absolutely hesitation. My father and I worked all of our lives building the company, and we knew that we were owned by shareholders, and we had to have their interest at heart, and of course my father owned, I guess between the family and my father, there's roughly 47% of the company, so we had a strong vested interest in to make sure that if we were going to sell the company, to get as much for it as possible. And later, as you know, the company was ultimately, we had Credit Suisse, Blackstone, Cerberus, a group of people came in to pay more and ultimately decided that it wasn't worth more than $12.50. So there again was another check to see that ultimately the board made the right decision.
And what has changed since you've sold the business?
I would tell you that nothing has changed. Certainly some things have, and every one of those are absolutely wonderful, positive changes. Of course, my life is much more fun now to not be begging for capital. We were needing over $1.2 billion in capital for mortgages each year, and the cost of capital had continued to rise and rise. So not be doing that and not having the public company pressures has given us all more time to spend on the business. But the best thing, of course, is that having capital in an industry has opened up many more opportunities for us. I love to tell the story, and people don't believe it, but as we've made a lot of acquisitions over the last 24 to 36 months, and literally every time when I would talk to Warren, he would say, Kevin, you and the team need to make that decision. Just rest assured you have plenty of capital to do so. So it doesn't get much better than that.
Now, it's been rumored that when Warren makes an acquisition, he doesn't visit, and some people think that he doesn't do his due diligence because he doesn't visit. What's your take on, is it true that he did not visit you before he acquired you?
That's exactly right. We sold the company. Of course, my father being the chairman, having built this company, sold the company without ever talking to Warren, or certainly Warren ever visiting us. We were fortunate enough to have him come afterwards.
Right.
And what a great experience that was. But he's so intelligent that it doesn't take him long to do due diligence. He literally stays current, I think, with most companies out there in most industries. So, and with all the contacts that he has, he sized up our industry very quickly.
And how long did it take you to realize how much of a knowledge base Warren had about your particular industry?
Instantly. I've never been around anybody that, for instance, he sized up our industry problems that you could write a book about easily. He sized it all up in one sentence. He says, Kevin, it seems like the problem with your industry is resale. And every part of our problem at that time in the industry stems right back to that. So we're doing a lot of things to address that now.
And then on the time you sold the business, you had about $100 million in earnings, and
Correct.
Now about 5 times that?
That's right. We had definitely a triple. Back in, I think, 98 was our most profitable year, and we were 200 plus pre-tax, and we look to zero in on 500.
Wow.
North of 500 this year.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Of course, Warren has invested billions of dollars in our company since he spent $1.7 billion. And I take great pride in telling that story because, here's a company he paid $1.7 billion for, and within 12 months, he was investing, north of $2 or $3 billion annually. And since, the purchase, it's north of $7 billion. So the confidence and faith he has in our team and the faith he has in this industry is so obvious from that.
And that money is being used for you to buy up other people's mortgages?
That's correct. The majority of that capital was used to buy. We've literally bought most manufactured housing loans out there at nice discounts, and we have such a fine team of people that service those loans well. See, we're great collectors of the mortgages, and then we have the ability to bring the homes back in the event of a foreclosure, order the materials from our plants at wholesale, recondition the home, and resell it, and have the financing to resell the home. But in addition to that, of course, we've got a great team that we purchased the Oakwood, Fleetwood Retail, Karsten Manufacturing recently.
Well, I think in your dad's book, he talked about one of the best things about joining up with Warren is that he got you a front row seat at many of these auctions, as well as a AAA credit rating.
Yeah, there's not very many companies that have a AAA credit rating, as you know. So when you do talk to a potential seller and they know that there's no financing contingency in AAA rating, the capital that we have, it absolutely opens up doors that they would have never had otherwise.
Your dad started the business in 1966, if I read right. He ran it for about 50 years. He actually started the business about 1 year after Warren took control of Berkshire Hathaway, which I believe was 1965. In those years, and I realize you haven't been around for all those years, what do you think was the most pivotal moment in Clayton's history that was kind of a tipping point? Can you point to one?
There's several. It was actually 1956, because you said 50 years, yeah. And that's right. This year we celebrate our 50-year anniversary. Started selling automobiles in '56, and shortly thereafter, manufactured housing. There's been so many lessons along the way, and I think that's what's special about Warren. Looks for companies with great cultures, and my father, started the company. We did go bankrupt in the early '60s. And that taught us some valuable lessons. We never really had any debt to speak of after that. The lenders just decided to get out of the industry, paid everybody back in full. But that also told us to have our own finance company. So I really give a lot of credit to that happening because we created our own finance company in 1972 because we saw lenders continue. They would come into manufactured housing and lend money too easy, trying to buy market share, and then they would over collect loans and literally move people out of their homes when they shouldn't have. And so that forced us to have this finance company, and that has served us very, very well. I mean, most years after that, over half of our income generally is from financing.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the business. The economics of a site-built home versus a factory-built home. What is what's the cost per square foot difference? Of
course, it depends on where we're talking about geographically. I'd love to use the example right here in Omaha.
Okay.
Because I just left the Berkshire shareholder meeting over here where we're setting up 2 manufactured housing units. One's $89,000, one's $79,000. And by the way, we call one of them Charlie's Crib and Warren's Pad on the other one. And we just sold Charlie's Crib before we got it set up. And that was a lovely couple that have been saving money. Their plan was to save money for another 3 years and build up to have a sizable down payment and purchase a home. And they were planning on spending well north of $130 a square foot. They just bought this home that was equal in square footage size, and they really think that it was aesthetically on par or better, and they paid $50 a square foot. Wow. And they're going to go ahead and buy it today, and the home will literally be set up and installed within the matter of 2 or 3 weeks from now. So we're also in the fast housing business, particularly in parts of the country where weather is an issue, then many developers are using factory-built housing now to do more homes, tie their cash up, for less time. And now that the homes are on par with site-built housing aesthetically, and they've always been built very well. Most people don't realize this, but since 1994, when we made the wind zone standard changes, there literally has not been one home found that has been severely hurt after all the hurricanes that have happened.
Wow.
So that's a message that we've got to do a better job as an industry getting out there. We now have J.D. Powers in the industry measuring customer satisfaction, and we're doing a very good job with that. And so these are the things that are propelling factory-built housing to be a much larger player in the overall housing market. And that couple is a great example of, there still is the greatest shortage of affordable housing in America right now. And we hope to continue to get better to serving that.
What percentage of the overall market, Kevin, is manufactured in a factory versus site-built?
It's around 10% today.
Factory-built.
Factory-built. We use the word terminology factory-built, which would include everything mobile home, manufactured housing, and modular. We do all of the above, manufactured housing and modular units. So.
And I was going to ask you what you've done with the image. There's many jokes about trailers and hillbillies, and is there anything that Clayton Homes is doing in terms of the image?
As an industry, we're ready to launch a national campaign to dispel those myths, because as I mentioned, hurricanes, that's not an issue anymore. Now every home has to be inspected by a licensed installer, an inspection process. The tie-down systems and all that are very adequate, as evidenced by the hurricane issues. J.D. Power, CSI, all those things now give us a great message to go public with, and there's plans for that underway now.
And where do you see Clayton Homes, say, 20 years from now?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun being a part of that. It's exciting to see our product now. We build homes as large as 5,000 or 6,000 square feet in downtown Detroit. I was in a home recently, a large colonial home there. We build, again, multi-story homes. We build some multi-family units. So the potential is enormous. And again, with the capital that Warren provides, we should be able to do really on-par financing, and I think we'll excel site-built housing from a quality standpoint. Every one of our homes is inspected by federal inspection through HUD all throughout the building process, and that's not done with site-built housing. So particularly when material costs have gone up and land costs, it really makes us even much more compelling.
And it seems to me that it's not an industry where you have to worry about outsourcing, where some other country might be able to manufacture homes cheaper and then ship them. Is that
that's very accurate. We're very fortunate. Of course, Warren looks for companies that have that enduring competitive advantage, and that's part of our moat. And we intend to deepen and widen that part of our moat. We've shipped units overseas before. We continue to look at opportunities overseas, but it would be very difficult for someone to compete. The availability, people don't realize in America, with availability of lumber and raw materials, it is terrific here compared to most places overseas.
So just as foreign competition's not likely to manufacture offshore and import, is Clayton Homes not very likely to manufacture here and export? For the same reason?
We have shipped some units, but more likely it would be us taking our expertise and lending it overseas and building over there. That's a possibility, but such opportunity here domestically, I think that's a ways off.
Well, Warren likes to say that there's two kinds of competition that he doesn't like: foreign and domestic.
Right.
And it seems like you've eliminated the foreign. What about your domestic competitors? How are they holding up?
We have some good competitors. I mean, everybody's trying to carve out their niche, and Warren is very competitive. it's just amazing his personality to be such a genius. He's also the greatest leader I have ever worked for, the greatest people skills. But again, he paints such an image in each of our managers' minds about this moat, this competitive moat. And our job is very simple, and we share this. It's so fun sharing, some of the things that he passes along throughout our organization. And we challenge every one of our team members, every department. Who is your customer? Deepen and widen your moat to keep out the competition, and whether it's the next department over, how can you serve them better? But some of our competitors do a good job, but our plans are to make that difficult for them. But ultimately, it's providing very affordable and the highest quality of affordable housing. If we do that and we get better every day, we should have a very bright future.
And you're currently the leader in sales and in earnings in the industry?
That's correct.
And what percentage of the manufactured home market does Clayton own?
Of units shipped, we're closing in on 25% of shipped, meaning built. We are the largest retailer of factory-built housing, also through the 450 company-owned stores. But the mom-and-pop operator out there, and there's plenty of those, they will always be the dominant selling organization, and we rely on, again, almost 2,000 of those independent retailers to sell our product. They're very, very competitive and do a great job for us.
I wanted to talk about your management style, philosophies, the culture at Clayton. How would you define your core philosophies or your core values at Clayton Homes?
Well, we have a leadership model in our company, and it's the inverted triangle. So we call it the servant leadership model, and it's become more popular recently. But we ask every manager to take that servant mentality, which just clearly says that their job is to make sure every team member has every tool and resource on their team to be successful. And that's each of our jobs. If we do that and make sure they have everything they need, then it takes a lot of pressure off the manager. Their job is not to have every answer, but to team with everybody else in the company and find the right answer. So that gets into this self-awareness and the self-confidence and each of those leadership characteristics that helps create our culture. Our culture was created from Jim Clayton, day one. And that's the work ethic, results-oriented. No matter where we are today, there's a better way to do it tomorrow. So we're challenging every process throughout the organization, and that's what keeps it fun. That's why my job will always be fun. And I'm so excited at this moment. I realize we've got a long ways to go, and that's what keeps it so fun.
So the culture from Jim Clayton to Kevin Clayton, has it changed?
My father created the company and took it to one level, and at that he was able to literally be hands-on with every process and know every person in the company intimately well. And the company grew to a size where, and I was fortunate because my leadership style really wants to encourage team members to make sure they have every tool, again, and resource they can to make good decisions, and then ask for support and help. I also won't hesitate to jump in and help micromanage when the process needs it, but at the size the company grew to, I have had to absolutely rely on the team, and what a team we have.
How many employees, you call them team members?
Correct.
How many?
We're 15,000 now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, in your father's book, he talked about the difference between ego and confidence, and he also talked about you having a lot of confidence. And can you comment on your dad's perception of those two personality traits?
Dad's had created so many good analogies for us, one of which is this 90-10 rule. And all of us have these great core competencies, and we're very comfortable making 90% of the decisions that come at us. But we ask our team members to realize chances are they're going to have some things that they have not had a lot of experience in, which is those 10%ers, if you will. So create an environment where your team members are comfortable coming and asking for help on those 10%ers. And then all of us, no matter what position we're in, including me, should be very comfortable asking for help on those decisions. So never we always talk about, always play for the name on the front of the jersey and not the back of the jersey. It's just keeping the ego totally out of it, attack the process rather than the person. These are all these cultural things of what makes Clayton Homes so great today. And we work hard, smart, and together. We've got acronyms. Our lives work only to the extent we're willing to keep our agreements. I love that one that my father started, and then something that I've kind of taken that to another level is that really there's 4 major areas of all of our lives that that we need to keep our agreements in. And our lives work only to the extent we're willing to keep those agreements, but that's this work, health, spiritual, and family. And we really promote that throughout the company. We closed all of our locations on Sundays a year ago, and we did it for all 4 of those important areas of our lives. And often you'll find team members that are overdosing, and particularly that work quadrant. And because literally when you're on one of our sales centers selling homes to families that never dreamed they would have a home of their own, and they're crying across the table, it's easy to overdose at work, and our lives work best when we pay some attention to all those other areas.
I also thought it was pretty interesting on your headquarters and how that may be different than most headquarters.
Well, I was very pleased to have the opportunity to build a new office. We did that in 1998, and we built it with no offices. So it's a totally open atmosphere, and we always promoted this open book concept, and it's served us so well. I mean, the only offices, there's no offices, but there's some private rooms for teaming rooms, but everybody, including me, were same size desks. So good news is we don't have to move desks around anymore. We just move around as we grow different areas of the company. But that's, again, a cultural thing that makes us a little bit different.
So you have a cubicle just like everyone else?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Your management style, how do you spend your time?
I spend it working on people, supporting the troops. I have an all-star management team that run each of those 5 businesses, and they're dynamite. They're the best in the industry in each of those areas. So I'm often amazed at how little they need me, and that tells me we're doing a better job. But seeing where the industry's going and making sure that we're doing the very best job we can in each of those areas, that's we open communication frequently and often with that leadership team.
You got 5 businesses in one. How do you balance the different, unique demands of each one of those businesses?
Well, my father started this discipline in our organization, and it has led probably to more of our success than any one other thing. And that is, we always said we would never allow one part of the company to prop up another one, which would make ultimately that entity weak. And so we're never going to give away financing to sell more homes at retail. We're never going to make our store managers buy Clayton products. See, those store managers can buy from lots of other manufacturers, and they do. And that keeps our plant managers, if they're not the best on value, cost, quality, and style, then our stores, and certainly those independents, will buy from other people. So having that discipline, which is really what led to a lot of the failures of the other companies in our industry, we'll never compromise that. And I think that'll continue to make us a stronger company, make sure every one of those has to compete independently.
What about people and your selection of people, Kevin? It seems as though that's got to be the key of your business as well as any other business.
Absolutely. We have great stores and great plants. What Clayton Homes really has is the very best people in the industry, and we just keep trying to raise that bar. Retention, our turnover is as low as it's ever been in the history of the company. We keep trying to drive that down further. Again, great cultures attract great people and retain people. We try to put the great incentive programs in place where the performers make a lot of money and they stay with us. So that's the thing I'm most proud of course, is the people that we have.
Now, I understand through my research that you've adopted some Japanese management philosophies, a word I'm not sure how to pronounce Kazan.
Kazan, yeah.
Kazan. What the heck's Kazan?
Well, Deming, statistical process control, these are things, of course, the Japanese learn very well, and many companies in the U.S. too now deploy those. But I was fortunate enough to go to the University of Tennessee and the graduate school there, and I was so anxious to get back into work and try to put some of those in place. Well, it took a long time, and not until I did one thing that really propelled it along, and that was I changed the pay program within our manufacturing plants. And when I was in Waco, Texas, great place to live. I'm not sure what I did to deserve to get shipped off there, but no, it was a great experience. We started up our first plant there in Texas, and it became obvious to me that most people, the management in the plant was incentivized on total profitability, and whereas the line worker, who had all the information about how to make a better home and was really ultimately the best person there, then they were paid on how many units they shove out the door, which is how a lot of production people pay. Well, we started including our team members, and we pay our team members now 20+% of the pre-tax profit at that plant. So we get together monthly and talk about the good and the bad. The walls are covered with all the profit and loss and the information that they need to know how to build a higher quality home, because every scrap and waste comes right out of their pocket now. Every quality item defect, scrap, waste. So they're incentivized now for the same thing that management is, and that's to build the best house possible. And it no longer is, number one, is not important how many units you build. So that, we literally build wiring harnesses now, so there's not 2 inches of extra wire laying around, because 20+% of that is the team members. It's those kinds of things that really have propelled quality throughout the company.
Have the Japanese taught you anything else in terms of managing your business?
Well, this whole open book and sharing of information and measuring every process step along the way and improving it all the time. That's the basics of what most of those philosophies come back to.
So you're not only team member centric, but you're also customer centric. Can you explain that?
Well, we rely so much on repetitive business and reputation. Reputation to my father in this company was always number one. Warren Buffett, of course, takes it to a whole nother level, and taking again some of what he continues. There's not a lot of things that Warren is constantly communicating to us managers, but there are a couple: the moat and the competitiveness. But reputation, and I honestly believe what he says is true. We could lose hundreds of millions of dollars tomorrow, and that would be fine. Don't lose a shred of reputation. Never contemplate any act, and we share this, have so much fun with our team members, because it, again, protect our reputation every day. Never even contemplate an act unless you're totally comfortable with it appearing on the front page of the paper, written by an informed reporter. You've heard all of these so many times, but it paints that image about how serious we are about taking care of every customer. And then we've always, we call every customer after they've lived in the home 6 months and ask them, would you buy from us again? And so we incentivize and measure every aspect of the business based on what the customer is telling us.
Is your management style, Kevin, much different than the management style you and your father had?
Not really, because we're both very driven to do better and make it a better company every day. I think the main things again are just the size of the organization. It requires a different skill set, and to depend much more so on your successful people out there.
And to your childhood, when you were growing up, what was your dream? Was your dream to run Clayton Homes, or?
No, it never was, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I am forever grateful to my father for never insinuating at all that I want you to run this company. He had the intelligence to never do that. There's no telling how it would have turned out, I'm afraid, if he would have kept hitting me with that, or maybe more importantly, kept telling people that was important to him. We always knew that we wanted the best person to run Clayton Homes that we could find, and that left all my options open. And so I had a dad, nice enough too to leave me in each position a long time to make sure I could make it and to get promoted and learn each of the areas.
But what was your boyhood dream?
Well, I like to fly airplanes, as you do,
right.
And so there's many times when my dad and I were flying around, opening up a mobile home lot. At that time, he would take a cat nap because he was working around the clock and tell me to hold that heading and that altitude. So I've always enjoyed flying, and but beyond that, it doesn't get any better than selling a home to somebody who never dreamed that they could have a home in many cases. So I was always very interested and wanted to stay in a business. Worked a couple of places, but not for very many years, and always came back.
Besides your father, who was one of your boyhood influences? Who did you really admire? Who were some of your heroes?
I would say my mother. Mother has a great sense of humor, values. She was a very hard-working person, just like my father, and I am very blessed. The two of them were an incredible influence on me, and encouraged me to school. We worked after school every day, and they were both there for many of the sports activities as well along the way. So,
anyone non-family related? Superman or
no, nobody jumps out at me really. I all along life I just tried to take advantage of every opportunity that came along.
In your first job at Clayton Homes, 75 cents an hour, what were you doing?
That would have been on one of the sales centers, cleaning the sales center, working on homes, installing homes, and it was a lot of fun. It really was.
And what was the worst job you've had at Clayton Homes?
Often I had the opportunity to go in behind some managers where we had locations that were in tough markets. I know I got shipped off down to Georgia after we bought a distressed mobile home loan portfolio of loans that I was charged with cleaning up and running multiple sales centers down in that area, traveling 6 days a week. And those were some tough times, but those are lessons that I wouldn't trade for anything.
And the hardest thing you have to do now?
It's that's a good question. There's not a lot that I don't really enjoy right now. Seeing a plant or a facility of any that's not taking advantage of all the programs that we have to offer, those are painful to see, and I try to encourage those people along.
I thought you'd say possibly firing somebody might be the hardest thing you have to do.
It always is. It always is. My father shared a lesson with me that we share throughout the organization that's, again, a piece of that culture. We never let a team member go in our company in such a manner that they wouldn't still recommend we're a good place to work and they were a good place to buy a home from. And what that makes us all do is, it should never be a surprise to you if you're not a fit with our company any longer. And we're always going to do it in such a manner that we can, part friends. Yep.
In terms of succeeding your father, what kind of preparation did you put yourself through?
Again, Dad was smart enough to leave me in different roles in the company for a long time, and I've worked in the factory floor, ultimately ran a region of our manufactured housing retail locations, and then a plant, and got to run each of the different 5 business units before 1999 when I became the manager. And so that was good preparation, because again, back to each one of our companies, if we lost control or gave away one part of the company, it could benefit another. Well, so it's important for who leads this company in the future to have the knowledge of each of those organizations, because each are important to each other, but they do have to stand on their own and compete.
The challenges of being the son of the founder, the son of the leader of the business. I think Don Graham at the Washington Post, who succeeded his mother, said that most people didn't think he was quite as smart as he really is, and he kind of liked that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, or what do you wish more people understood about being the son of such a dynamic entrepreneur like your father?
There's days where you could let that bother you, that someone assumes that you were propelled into this position, and that's back to what I said. I was so fortunate that my father never, told people that he wanted me to run it, and people that have been around for a long time understand that hopefully that I was able to work through the organization and earned each of the different positions. I wouldn't want it any other way. And but you always wish that, but I would agree. I'd rather have it where people underestimate you.
Right.
And my father always said, and I believe it to be true, I mean, the most dangerous people are people that don't know how much they don't know. We really encourage a very humble style, because that's the dangerous person that thinks they have all the answers. And
you've gone through several transitions from a family business to a publicly traded business, and now from a publicly traded business to being a subsidiary of a very large conglomerate. What are some of the advantages to being a subsidiary of a very large company?
Well, to have a mentor and a boss that you would ultimately, that it doesn't get any better than the example that he sets from all aspects of life. And it's true that nobody believes this, but he literally says, don't send me anything monthly except stuff you would produce normally. So we literally don't package up anything. Ultimately, Berkshire Hathaway consolidates the numbers, but it's the normal financial package we would have prepared anyway. And people don't believe. It's fun sharing. I mean, the common question is, what's it like working with Warren?
Right.
And we talk. Fortunately, we're still averaging about once every 2 weeks, and we're usually talking about an acquisition. And those are wonderful questions. He's always there. He answers the phone, normally in the first ring or two. So he always talks about, that most people find him a lot more boring of a person, because he really sits around and like a professor and studies. But to have a person like that you can bounce things off is wonderful. And not having to worry about capital and the public markets provides a lot of extra time to work on building a better home.
One CEO told me that he used to be publicly traded, Ralph Shea of Scott Fetzer.
Correct.
After he sold the business to Warren, he reported to me that there were 50 days a year that he now had to spend inside the business, and no longer had to meet with analysts, no longer had to meet with bankers.
Correct. Without question, that's
Can you
true.
quantify?
That is a good number. I've tried to quantify it, and it would certainly be around that number. And you could add to that, even though you may not be spending any time on it at that moment, it's certainly in your mind and a big part of your thinking process all the time. That Warren is an absolutely the way it should be, very, very long-term horizon. And you're able to make investments that are going to yield rewards. Even if they don't yield a reward for the first 5 years, it doesn't matter. Next quarter never matters. And really, if you're preparing for 5 years out and going to compromise the next 2 years to do it, that's a good decision.
Warren likes to say that he requires no meetings of you as a CEO. He requires no budgets. What is his standing order to you? What does he want you to do?
Everything you just said is exactly true.
No meetings?
No. There's once a year. There's a optional invitation. I was fortunate enough to get invited to come to and actually be around the board at a recent board meeting, and that just even gelled my thinking and what the culture of Warren and what he's created. I think will go on a long, long time after Warren as well. But yeah, everything's optional, and there's nothing mandated whatsoever.
So you send financials monthly to headquarters?
Correct.
And you call Warren whenever you would like to? Does he ever call you?
Occasionally. yeah. It's something that he's heard or has an inquiry about, but there's never directing the business.
And Warren doesn't like to talk about synergy, but what have been some of the Warren Buffett effects or the Berkshire Hathaway effects of joining a large conglomerate?
People find it hard to believe that we're not mandated to buy John Mansville insulation for our homes, MyTech gang nails, Shaw carpet, the list goes on, and we're not whatsoever. And circling back to what I said earlier, not making one of our businesses prop up another one, it's the same philosophy. I mean, if we're mandated to start buying those materials, they could not be as competitive as we could get on our own. So management would lose some accountability. If Warren is dictating these things down, then so I think he's very, very wise in the way that he does things. And the synergies that are there, of course, is that each of the managers, all things being equal, we would rather sell to a sister Berkshire company. And we look for those. One example that I just spent some time on recently, Home Services of America is the large brokerage.
Second largest home brokerage company in the United States.
In the country.
Right.
And so you can certainly paint a picture how 5 years from now, these subdivisions that we're building with beautiful factory-built housing could be part of their supply of housing ultimately, and handling of the remarketing of some of those. So there's things like that will certainly come to fruition.
Kevin, when I think of Clayton Homes, I think of home manufacturing, but Warren lists Clayton Homes as a financial subsidiary or financial services. Why do you think you're classified in that category in the annual report? Well,
when Warren purchased us, I think the financial services was north of 60% of our income. Today at 70%, our financial, total income, having purchased those portfolios. So, and it certainly is a wonderful recurring income aspect, and we deploy a lot of capital in financial services. That is the capital requirement. The rest of the businesses typically generate cash. So we're very fortunate to be in that part of the business, particularly because lending, comes and goes in this industry and site-built housing. So,
on to succession. It seems like the Clayton Home model of how your dad selected you as a successor and prepared you, and then gave the reins to you, is a model that other companies should possibly consider. Your thoughts on Berkshire Hathaway and Warren's succession plan, different than Clayton's, but do you have any thoughts?
Total comfort with that, because you've heard Warren say too that the person who is managing the companies of Berkshire Hathaway, their job will be to primarily stay out of their way and to keep letting them manage their businesses. That's the message that Warren has shared with the board, and I have total confidence in them. I think there'll be a great succession plan. Certainly the people that I see Warren surrounding himself with are very, very capable people.
So Berkshire post Warren, will it look much different than what it looks like today?
I don't think it does look any different. I think it's an amazing machine that Warren has created that will outlive us all.
In analyzing some of the CEOs that make up the Berkshire Hathaway team, it seems as though they're going to look for somebody in their 40s, somebody who's already running a very successful subsidiary, somebody already in the business, not bringing anyone in from the outside. It seems as though Kevin Clayton would be a candidate of 3 or 4 CEOs that I could think of that would fit that role. If the board selected you as a successor to Warren, what would you do?
Well, that's quite a pipe dream that you've painted there. I would jump for joy. I mean, any way that you could be associated with Berkshire Hathaway would be an incredible honor. So again, just as I was growing up in my father's business, I would want to make sure they chose the best person, and that's the most important thing beyond who it is.
Well, how would you manage the other CEOs?
The same that Warren does, understanding that philosophy of, there's certain, obviously, he says the exact same, the right thing. It's reputation, protect the company and the entities that we have, be as competitive as you possibly can, deepen and widen that moat every day, but not dictating down to managers how to accomplish the results that they need to. Because I genuinely believe they start losing accountability when you do that. It is real clear that if I mess this company up, if it gets messed up, it's clearly my doing and not his.
In terms of corporate responsibility, corporate charity, in your own personal philanthropy, I've found that most successful, if not all successful, business people that I've interviewed all have a mission outside of their own business. What's the Clayton Home corporate charity?
Our twofold. We try to be very active philanthropically in a lot of areas, but the two primary focuses that we have, one is we think in the future that factory-built housing will play a larger role in working through nonprofits, providing housing to, particularly in urban infill and housing of all types, to people that couldn't afford it otherwise. Rebuilding some downtown areas, all that. We really have a great product for that, and we're getting better at that. And Ford Foundation right now is spending $10 million showing the nonprofits how to use factory-built housing for that. So we're following kind of their lead in that area. We've got a ways to go. And then second of all is education and working with schools. And we're kind of watching Bill Gates and the lead that he's taking there, he and Melinda and that foundation. They work through a lot of organizations, one of those which Daggett does this model school conference and symposium. We're working with several high schools in our area and middle schools, sending them to that conference, getting them involved in that network. It's really sharing best practices and trying to start teaching more of what's relevant, having people come out of high school that are ready to go to work at Clayton Homes and many other jobs, and keep them in those towns where they were raised, make sure there's good jobs there, because ultimately all the data shows that to build a great community, they have great schools. If you've got great schools, the rest of the things usually come right behind that. So we're having a lot of fun being involved in that.
What about the Clayton Family Foundation?
Very similar to, they support both of the initiatives that I just mentioned, and my father has control of that foundation, and it's getting quite large, and he's tended to give money where we, Clayton Homes, have been successful and have team members. We hope some of these initiatives we're working on we'll be able to take out to the communities where we do business and other places.
In your father's book, First a Dream, the proceeds go to the Tennessee Theater restoration.
That's right, great project. It's really complete now, and they need to pay down a little more of the debt. So ever since the book was introduced, every dollar out of the purchase price, every dollar of it goes towards that and some other philanthropic initiatives. So it's particularly the new 8 chapters that were added recently. They're wonderful and go through the whole merger and the litigation, which Warren described as one of the ugliest litigation being around one of his mergers. That was a tough process. It took almost a year.
What do you like to do for fun? I know you like to pilot airplanes. You flew yourself here today to the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Yes, I like that. Take it very seriously. Go through the simulator training several times a year.
Flight safety, I hope?
Flight safety, absolutely. What a great company that is. Fortunately, we put enough hours on our planes annually that we don't use net jets, but we would if we weren't putting the kind of hours we were trying to grow the business. I'm very blessed to have a new 3-year-old in our life, our only child, and she is a ton of fun. And my wife and I like to snow ski occasionally, and we have a lot of fun. I'm very blessed.
If you had anything to do over again, What would you do over?
No, to have a beautiful, wonderful wife and a 3-year-old and work for Warren Buffett, it doesn't get much better than that.
We're on campus here and wondered if you had any other advice to college student, young people in general.
Well, don't sweat. A lot of people think coming out of school that how I'll ever be at a level where I'm able to compete and have a job like many other people out there, and don't worry about it too much. We're not near as smart as some of you make us out to be. I can assure you it's just taking advantage of every opportunity to gain experience, gain all the experience you can along the way, and you will be shocked at the doors that will open and the opportunities out there.
Kevin, thanks for sharing your time, your business success, your insights into what it is like to manage a family business, a publicly traded company, and to sell to one of the world's most famous and successful financiers. And now, what it is like to manage a subsidiary within a large conglomerate. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your time.
Bob, thank you. Enjoyed it.
To learn more about Clayton Homes and all of its 5 businesses, and to order Jim Clayton's book, First a Dream, visit clayton.net. I'm Bob Miles, and thank you for joining us.